She autographed my Constitution, so I'm very happy. She is the endorsed candidate by President Trump. All right? We all love Trump. Yes, amen. And I actually watched her video today, 12 minutes. She was on Steve Bannon War Room. And if you haven't seen that, it was in the email that Christy sent around. It was phenomenal. So without further ado, Kristina Karamo. Yeah, give her a big hand.
I love Tony's outfit, by the way. I think he's the best dressed man in the room. So hi, I'm Kristina Karamo. I am so grateful to be here. I think, man, I'm just so moved because I never saw myself running for statewide office. I have a master's in Christian apologetics. And so my whole focus was spreading the gospel because fundamentally all these problems we have in society are spiritual. You know, the government cannot fix spiritual brokenness. And as a matter of fact, when the government does try to fix what only God can, it actually leads to tyranny. So, you know, I've been active for a long time in politics. How many precinct delegates do we have in here? That's great. If your hand's not up, please become a precinct delegate, even though the deadline is over with for this year. But in 2 years, 24, you can be a precinct delegate. I'm on state committee for the Michigan Republican Party. And, you know, I was a spokeswoman for the Oakland County Republican Party. So I've always been a very active politically person. But my focus was really helping to defend the Christian faith. So lots of times people ask, you know, what's apologetics? The little apologetic joke is we're not apologizing for anything. It's the Greek root word apologia, which means to defend. And so that's what we do. We defend the Christian faith against objections. And when you start to analyze the evidence, you're like, how can people not believe the gospel of Jesus Christ? But I digress. So, you know, well, that was my focus. But part of that was getting Christians involved in politics. Because one of the reasons I'm going here on this topic is why this just warms my heart so much is because for too long, the church has sat on the sidelines. You know, we've said like, oh, you know, politics, that's just such a dirty world. We just have nothing to do with that. Well, maybe it's dirty because the people of God are in that space. You know, because as you go through this process, you start to realize government isn't complicated. We've convinced ourselves that only a certain segment of the population can really fill this role, the quote-unquote qualified people, when if you're an American citizen of age, that makes you qualified. Because if you look at what's happening, it's a bunch of morally bankrupt people making self-serving decisions. That's what's wrong in government. And so while I was at the TCF Center, I know many of you were here, Pat Colbeck was there at the TCF Center, and I witnessed multiple illegal things. You know, a process designed to facilitate corruption, illegal ballots being cast, and I was just outraged. I was just beside myself. And one of the things that I don't like to do is just sit on the sidelines and be mad. You know, people are just upset. We're frustrated. Like, okay, what good is being frustrated going to do without action? Frustration should be what gets you rolling. So while I was there at the TCF Center and I saw illegal activity and, you know, I, like many people, went and testified before the Senate Oversight Committee, and it was just like story time. Like, okay, everybody, let's get together and share stories. Like, this is not an elementary class. I'm an adult. I saw a crime. I want some action. No action was had, and that's why Jocelyn Benson is still sitting in office. Because she violated the law. And that, in fact, I was told, don't say her name anymore. So I'm not going to say her name. My opponent. That's what I'm going to say. Not her name. But my opponent, you know, and she's a habitual liar. Because after the 2020 election, she claimed there were armed protesters in front of her house. The Detroit police came out and said, no, nobody was armed. Now, to be fair, I don't believe people should protest in front of people's homes. I feel like people's home is off, that's off limits. You don't do that. However, even if, with that being said, that wasn't okay, she lied about it. And then she lied again recently, claiming that President Trump wanted her executed. You know? And so the thing about it is that even though it's just the absurdity of it all, but that should concern us. Because I'm on a national slate with other Secretary of State candidates in battleground states, and I've been hearing that the other Democratic Secretaries of State are making the same claim about threats. So if you notice, Democrats use the same language, you know, and if you're a political like us, it like irritates you. Like they're using the same words. Like when you ever hear hate won't win, okay, that's the leftist buzzword. Or a 5-fire alarm. I'm like, what is that all about? So I'm noticing they're using no words, and they're trying to create this scenario that the lives of election workers are under threat. So why is Benson, why is the SOS in Colorado, like why are the Democratic Secretaries of State starting to claim our lives are in danger? They're up to something. They're creating a false pretense to deny us the ability to supervise the election process. Because the fact that they got away with it in 2020, let's not fool ourselves to think they're not going to do it again. We would be kidding ourselves. So how many people in here are signed up to be an election worker? Okay, I'm not trying to put anybody on the spot. I'm not, but I am. But guys, it's really important to get engaged, because us just being mad and I'm frustrated, and these gatherings are great, but we have to see these types of gatherings for what they are. These are an opportunity for us to connect, network, and like the title of the group, let's mobilize, right? So you connect, you network, and now you figure out, where can I plug in to be of change? Everyone in here needs to be an election worker. And if you're not an election worker, you need to be a poll challenger. One of the two. Now, unless you're a candidate, of course, you can't, well, actually you can, just not in that area. So I'll statewide, so I can't go anywhere. But if you're not a poll watcher, and you're an election worker, then you really are in no space to complain unless you have like a medical emergency or something of that nature. And I'm saying that because we have to take responsibility for the condition of our own country. We can't just be upset at the left for, they're destroying America, they're tearing it down. Yes, they are, and what are you doing about it? So that's why I decided to run for Secretary of State, because I said, if we don't have control of our election system, we don't have a country. And when you look at what's happening, I know everybody's freaking out, and I'm in that camp of what's happening with Davos Summit. What's going on in Davos, Switzerland, with the World Economic Forum and all this. We know what we know what globalists are. And the interesting thing about it is, for us as Republicans and constitutionalists and people who are freedom loving, for so long, we consistently are called conspiracy theorists, right? Because I was old enough, I remember when you called out globalism, you were called a conspiracy theorist. When you called out the fact that the left wanted open borders, you were a conspiracy theorist. When you said that COVID came from a lab in China, you were a conspiracy theorist. And just like all these little conspiracies are coming true. So that should show us something, that these people are looking to gaslight us. And part of the gaslight is to corrupt the election system so we no longer have control over our republic. Because that's the only thing that gives us power. Think about it. How many people in here have written an elected official? Okay? All right. Myself included. How many people have had their concern addressed? Look around the room. Look around. 2 people. 2 people out of everybody who raised their hand and said they've written an elected official, only 2 people had their concern addressed. So how is the only real meaningful way we are able to have control over our government? When we vote. So I argue, even though every race on the ballot is important, every race on this ballot is critical, but the Secretary of State is the one that the left is going broke for. They are putting everything they can in protecting this race, because if you Google Jocelyn Benson's name, I had to say her name again, compared to Whitmer, Nessel, or any other Democrat, the coverage of her is unreal, because that's how you actually control the country. There's 2 ways people control a country. This is true of in all of human history. You either control a country through a ballot or a bullet. That's it. There are no other ways, ballot or bullet. And we're blessed that we live in a country where we maintain control over our government through a ballot. And if that process is corrupted, how are we ever going to reclaim our power over our country? We won't. That's why this race for Secretary of State is so important. It is so important. That's why we need to care about this race. That's why if you look up my name, the national media is just obsessed with trying to paint me as an insane person, which clearly I'm not insane. Maybe to some people, but depending on who you ask, right? But yeah, right. So the thing about it is that's why they're so obsessed with trying to portray my opponent as just this really nice neighborhood mom who just wants to bake cookies and defend democracy. That's how they try to portray her. It's like, this woman is a habitual liar, and she is a criminal. She is a criminal, and I would definitively stake my flag. And I said, well, you don't have any evidence she broke the law. Well, a judge ruled that she actually violated the Administrative Procedures Act. So actually, a judge ruled she already broke the law. In addition to we talk about cleaning up our election system. I know Pat mentioned regarding the qualified voter file. Cleaning up our voter registration database is number one priority. Number one, because that opens the door for all of the rest of the fraud. Because without the bogus registrations, you can't get the fake ballots. You gotta have a person to attach that ballot to. And as we've went across the state, we've talked to so many people who've received absentee ballot applications for dead loved ones who never lived in their home. Yeah. Now this is really, really important, because this is a difference between a person who died and was not taken off the voter roll. We're talking we're talking about a situation where a person has been registered post-mortem. So there's clearly someone who has access to birth and death records to know who is related to who to peg them at that home. And who is the keeper of the records? Secretary of State. That's their job. And if you notice the attacks on having a voter ID, it makes no sense, because you guys know there was a bill passed to provide free ID for everyone. But yet the Democrats were against it. And it's two things that, it's really interesting. Jocelyn Benson and the Democrats, they love to say, well, everybody can't get an ID, that's a burden. Okay, when are adults going to be responsible for themselves? An ID is $10. I'm sorry, it's $10. However, we want to make it so painfully easy that if you don't have $10, you can get one for free. And when Jocelyn, okay, I gotta say her name again. When that lady, when she says, some people can't get one, whose job is it to issue IDs? That's the Secretary of State's job. So clearly you aren't doing your job as to why so many people are having a hard time to get an ID. That makes that makes no sense whatsoever. But when we see this, these people have bad motives. And one of the things is, especially for a lot of us been in politics long enough and active, it's really hard to fool us. Like we're very cynical, like really, okay. We're super cynical because we've just seen so much. With that being said, when something doesn't make sense, it's typically because it doesn't make sense. And these people they do not have good intentions to not want to clean up the qualified voter file. They do not have good intentions for not wanting to have voter ID. Those ballot drop boxes, those are a problem. When you talk about, some things that we need to solve, we need to have our ballot images as public record. That is something that's so important. There are so many common sense solutions to clean up our election system. We need increased citizen participation in the electoral process, not just voting, but as election workers. One of the biggest complaints I hear from our clerks is they don't have enough people to work the elections. That's a very big complaint that I hear. And we know there are corrupt clerks. There's corrupt people in every position. There's corrupt pastors. But what we're looking at right now is corruption at such a high level. It's coming from the Secretary of State. Where they're talking about her relationship with Eric. This is a leftist organization that is managing our voter registration database. This is terrifying. So there are so many things we need to clean up, and we need your activity. But I by no means want anyone to think that my only concern is what's happening with our election system. It's just a national security threat. So of course, anything that's a threat to our security is going to be my number one concern. However, the other responsibilities of the Secretary of State are of great importance as well. When we look at our failures at our branch offices, it's not just an irritation. I always like to make this joke, like, the Saturday Night Live episode when they show the person in the DMV and then they eventually turn into a skeleton. So people have so many jokes about horrible services at DMVs across America. But actually, when you think about it, it's causing real harm in people's lives. When you're talking to a military recruit and he has new Army recruits who want to join the military to serve our country, and then those young men and women can't get into a branch office to get an ID, that's a problem. When you talk to a homeless person who needs to get an ID so they can find a permanent place to live, that's a problem. When you talk to somebody because they can't get into a branch office in a timely fashion, because, in many branch offices, especially more sparsely populated areas, they can get in a little bit quicker because it's still an appointment system. But in a lot of densely populated areas, getting an appointment is still very hard. Still, right now, as I'm talking, they're still very hard. And so dishonest is the current office holder like to say things like, oh, we do have walk-in services. You just have to get online and you're still making an appointment. And that's what I'm talking about, that type of deception. That is massive deception. It's like, oh, even though you have to go online and make an appointment first, it's not really an appointment. It actually is a type of walk-in. If it's truly a walk-in, that means I just walked in, hence the title. And so we need both walk-ins and appointment services because people's lives are so difficult sometimes. Also, we want to be able to partner with local businesses to provide certain services like vehicle registration and tab renewal, say insurance agencies. So imagine if your local insurance agency was able to register your vehicle or renew your tab. That could serve a couple of purposes. Number one, that will cut down on wait times in branch offices. Additionally, that would help that local business be able to earn some revenue. And then because we're capitalists, we understand the beauty of competition. So they know if I'm getting people in and out, giving them a good deal, more people are going to come to my business. That serves multiple folds. It'll support our local economy, and it will make sure that you get in and out of your branch offices a lot quicker. And also just improving the flow of operations. You know, I talk to people, and some of the way operations are organized inside the branch offices, it makes no sense whatsoever. We also need to have more say-so from our local communities about what's happening in branch offices. What do I mean? Branch managers. Our branch managers need to have their voices restored at our local branch offices. There are 131 branch offices across Michigan, and every community has unique needs. So like say, for example, in Michigan, in Detroit area, there are a lot of used car dealerships. So they're going to have a certain set of needs when it comes to branch offices. You go somewhere more rural, like maybe somewhere like in Berry County, they have more agricultural vehicles. So they're going to have a certain set of needs. So you have to be mindful of the needs of a local community to make sure that you're tailoring how that branch office is ran based on the needs of that local community, just like a franchise. And there's other issues with the Secretary of State, because when we talk about groups like ERIC or Rock the Vote, which was a leftist group that the current office holder allowed to access a qualified voter file, that puts your identity in danger. One of the responsibilities of the Secretary of State is to protect your identity. So that is, if someone is impersonating you, it is the Secretary of State's job to affirm you are actually this individual, because they're the keeper of the records. They have the official records. So when you allow this third-party group to access our qualified voter file and then lie about it, claiming, oh, no, they weren't accessing, just like she claims there's walk-in services. Oh, no, they did not access that. We gave them an API tool that allows them to upload names to the qualified voter file. Same thing. This is what I'm talking to. This is an issue of character. This is why when I opened my comments, I said, the problem isn't that there are a bunch of people who don't know what they're doing. They're just confused. No, they're corrupt. They're not confused. This kind of stuff is common sense, and she just lied about it. And so now you allowed this group to access my private information. Now you've put me at risk for identity theft, and that's one of her jobs. Additionally, auto dealers and auto repair facilities, they're being totally mistreated by the Secretary of State. Totally mistreated. Do you know that the Secretary of State brings in $2.9 billion a year in revenue for the state of Michigan? Only 7% is actually kept to run their department. The other 93% goes into the general fund. So when you see those price increases at your branch offices, guess what you're funding? A bloated government budget where they go waste your money. This is what's happening. Again, this isn't, she's confused. They just don't know what they're doing. No, they're just corrupt. They're just corrupt. And the other things that make my candidacy so dangerous is, one of the reasons why these authoritarians are terrified of Christians running for office, because we can't be bought. We can't. Because we answer to Christ. Because at the end of the day, when I die, I have to give an account for my life. And I'm going to meet God one day. And I want it to be a wonderful experience, not a terrifying experience. And and not to get too off topic, but sometimes people use that they're a Christian as a license to do anything, and God will forgive me. God does forgive you, but you can't just do anything you want, because a true believer, there's fruit in their behavior. And so these authoritarians are terrified of people who can't be corrupted running for office, and I will never betray you. I will never let you down. When I first started running, and I would get people that would grill me and ask me really tough questions, for a lot of candidates that may frustrate them. It doesn't frustrate me. This is a job interview. I'm asking you to trust me with something so critical like our election system. You better scrutinize me, but But I will guarantee you, I will never let you down. I will never betray you, because I know so many people before have gotten behind candidates, given them money, volunteer, and the person turned around and did an absolute 180. I will not do that. Why? Because I fear God, and I want my children to grow up in a free country. And I've shared this all the time with people because this really inspired me. I grew up with a lot of immigrants. And if you talk to people who've immigrated from, say, communist China or Iraq, like a lot of kids I grew up with, or Vietnam, and those countries, they don't have freedom. They don't. They don't have freedom. Most of us in here have never experienced government tyranny. And they have. And when you hear about their home countries, or if you study history a little bit, the normal state of man is not peace but war. What we have is not normal. This is not normal. So we better protect it. And that's why I'm running for Secretary of State. That's why I'm doing this. So I really appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to me. But I cannot do this by myself. You know, a candidate is just really one spoke on the wheel. There's a whole team of people that make this happen. That's why I need your support. The reason the left is so invested in Jocelyn Benson's race, that they are going to pour millions upon millions of dollars in to keep her in that seat. So I need your support. And one of the things, you're talking to a lot of people, they're like, well, I don't have thousands of dollars. You got $10? What's more important, your freedom or a cheeseburger? Because how many of us have wasted $10 in the last week? Most of us have, okay? So I need your financial support. And oftentimes people are kind of discouraged, like, well, why do campaigns need so much money? Marketing. And then traveling across the state. We've done over 200 events as a campaign. That is expensive. That's very expensive. Hosting events, mailers, cards, t-shirts, all that. That stuff, yeah, gasoline. It costs lots of money. Billboards, all that stuff, that costs money. So we need your financial support. So if you have $10, and I know many of you probably have more than $10, but whatever you can afford, we are grateful. We are very, very grateful for your financial support. But that's not the only component. That's one leg of a campaign, but the other part is volunteers. So we need volunteers. However much time you have, so there's Christy, she's gonna come and say a few words. She's our events manager. But however much time you have, when we ask people to please volunteer for our campaign, we're not looking for you to sign your life away. We're not, just however much time you have. We need your support if we're going to be successful. Even though the wind is at our back, folks, we're gonna have a red wave if we can get a fair election, right? But also, we need your support. We need your support through your financial support, volunteers. There's so many things you can do to support. And I'm also gonna ask you to please support other candidates as well, not just myself. Because the other races are extremely important. If all of us chipped in, we would get our people in office. We would. We can see Soros and Bloomberg, but there are a few people. We have the numbers. And so if we put our money together, we have numbers and the money. We just have to see how much power we truly have. So thank you so much again for your time. Remember, please become an election worker or a poll challenger. Don't complain about election corruption if you're not willing to get involved in that process. So thank you again. God bless you. And Christy has a few words. Thank you.